A year after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, China presented its peace plan. There are some questions about it, but the main one is, why does China want Russia to win? China calls Russia's war against Ukraine the Ukrainian crisis. It's a diplomatic way of not calling the aggressor an aggressor, as well as equalizing the responsibility of the victim and the aggressor. By the way, pay attention to what's said on your TV, and you'll understand whether this channel lobbies Moscow's interests. But first, a quick flick through the history of the rather hostile Moscow-Beijing relationship. Moscow bit off a piece of China's territory when it was weakened by the so-called Opium Wars, for example, modern Vladivostok and Khabarovsk, and in the 20th century, there was even a short military border conflict. But 10 years ago, Xi Jinping made his first international visit specifically to Moscow, and world sanctions imposed on Russia for annexing Ukrainian Crimea egged on its closer ties with Beijing. To make this video seem not so biased to you, we admit that all 12 points of China's plan are indisputable. But unfortunately, China not only doesn't propose definite steps to achieve these goals, but also neglects its own proposals. For instance, the point about ceasing hostilities directly excludes the point about respecting the sovereignty of all countries, because China knows very well that Russia will not leave the occupied lands. Moreover, China did not support the UN resolution requiring Russia to do so. While the question, why are they offering anything at all, arises in your head, China is already shifting focus from Russia's responsibility somewhere away right before your eyes. Russia's responsibility? Where? The process of peace talks to settle the situation in Ukraine should begin as soon as possible, because sanctions and pressure will not solve the problem. China does not accuse Russia of invading a neighboring country, but blames the West for helping Ukraine defend itself. China believes that the persecution of its own national security should not be recognized as a violation of other countries' national security. That is, China supports Russia's opinion that they launched a famous preemptive strike due to the danger from the territory of Ukraine. China states that Ukraine's desire to return all its sovereign territories will escalate the war. They rightly fear that this war could become dangerous for humanity's existence in general, but for some reason, China puts the responsibility for this danger on the victim of aggression. So why does China want Russia to win? What surely does unite Xi Jinping and Putin's regimes is anti-Western rhetoric. Both governments share a hostility to dissent and a desire to establish even tighter control over their populations. China would benefit from a quick victory for Putin so that the war would not affect global markets. And the fall of Ukraine amid the recent withdrawal of US troops from Afghanistan would mark the fall of the West for domestic Chinese audiences. Therefore, when the war dragged on, China could either portray a peacemaker or help Russia with weapons. Consequently, China's passive position would be the best scenario for all parties. Let it remain that way.